was going to say the court is in session, but that's a different type of thing.
Not the court is in session.
The church is open. The forest space of forgiveness.
What's the things
open.
that they used to buy and sell?
Alms.
Is it alms? No. Alms is when you give stuff. Not perjuries.
Yeah.
You could buy.
I know what you mean.
You could buy you could go and do some adultery because you got a piece of paper from the church.
The only an ex-partner of mine used to walk past charity chuggers.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably speaking to quite a wide community of people who've done that job, I'm imagining.
Oh, of course.
Including I used to do it on the phone. Awful. And he used to say, "No, I do not wish to buy your no, I can't remember. It'll come back to me.
Ablutions.
Ablution. No. Buy your anyway.
Abolition. Your anyway. Okay. This one comes in. Dear Forest Gurus, I come to you ashamed of my actions during last week's camouflage game. We were deep in the heart of the woods, with the trees on all sides, when we were playing an intense round of hide-and-seek with camouflage. Mm-hmm. The hiders were burrowed carefully around their chosen spots, and they had used leaves and branches and mud to blend in with their advantage. So this is next level hide-and-seek. Yeah. As one of the seekers, it was my job to find them one by one. First, I was looking high and low, and I spotted a foot sticking out here, a tuft of hair peeking out there. But then I came across, they've put a name, but we don't know who this person is, so I think it's okay to use the name. Mm-hmm. I came across Billy, who had managed to tuck himself so seamlessly into a hollow tree stump that I couldn't believe he was practically invisible. This is when my mischievous side took over. Instead of calling out, "Bang, I found you," like I was supposed to, I turned around and redirected all the other seekers in the opposite direction, allowing Billy to remain hidden there indefinitely. As what started as an innocent prank turned into a half-an-hour-long hunt for Billy, with me intentionally steering everyone away from his brilliant camouflage spot. Wow. Finally, after half an hour, Billy emerged, looking slightly cramped for having been stuck in a tree for that long. And as soon as I saw him emerge, I knew I had taken the joke too far. Forest School Gurus, I've learned my lesson about abusing the power of being the seeker. Please forgive me for unfairly prolonging the game and causing Billy to spend half an hour in a tree stump.
Wow. Well, I would again...
Billy nailed it.
Billy, I would again say...
There's a squirrel is sat under the bench eating a cracker.
Oh. I would say that they are trying to be kind to Billy. They're celebrating Billy's success. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? Like, "Oh, I can't catch you. You're just so fast."
Yeah, I mean, context needed. Maybe Billy always gets caught first, and this was trying to address the balance.
I was going to say the same thing about context needed, because as long as it wasn't that they were just finding Billy quite exhausting that day, Billy asked a lot of questions. I might just not find Billy for half an hour.
Leave Billy in a tree.
As, parents might make these kind of confessions sometimes to us that they've played hide and seek in the house and,
Gone to have a cup of coffee.
Can't find the children.
Yeah.
They're safe, but I'm not going to find them. Yes, I mean, they haven't said that, so as long as that's not the case, and they're just doing it to,
facilitate a bit more play, elongate things. It doesn't sound like they immediately recognised that hiding space would be quite small and cramped. It doesn't sound like that. It sounds like they were in awe of it and wanted that moment to carry on.
Yes.
And I do understand that feeling of sometimes when particularly a mixed age group type setting, a squirrel is just sat under the bench. Can you see it?
No.
You might have to come around this side.
Well, in a minute.
Mixed age group stuff. Sometimes not everybody is always in the vibe of accommodate small people or whatever. So when a small person does something incredible, and you're a big kid is going to competitively just go for that. That's I've seen you move on. I've seen and you're they could have a real moment of do whatever. I don't think this one is necessarily a sin. I think this is do I? Half an hour is a long time.
That is a long time.
Half an hour is a long time without... Maybe they did this and they just didn't write it down. Half an hour is a long time without you yourself going down, making eye contact with Billy and going, "You're right, we
Yeah.
and checking in that that person is okay.
Yeah.
If that's what they did, and I want to believe the best in people, so I'm going to say that that's what they did, and that Billy was up for staying in that hiding spot, and then I think absolutely absolved.
I know.
No penance needed on this one.
I mean, is that better or worse than a bit of a confession that we have definitely done with parents and toddler group, where you've played a hiding game and you don't really, because not everybody plays, so some people like sitting around serving a cup of tea, so you're not exactly sure how many parents and children are hiding, and so then you think you found everybody at the end of the game.
You move on to a craft,
and then like a few minutes later some people emerge going, oh, we were hiding in the digging hole. No one came, and you're like, oh, sorry, like I forgot to do the wolf call to like gather everybody in to let them know that the game was over. That's just like neglect, whereas this person is choosing to do it. Maybe that's better or worse, I don't know. What do you think? Better or worse to choose?
Oh, better. Way better, because I feel like it came with good intentions.
Yeah.
Our sins came with absolutely no intentions, just a sprinkling of
just neglect.
Executive function lapsing.
Yeah.
I think we need to. Maybe what's penance for us? What's our perjury?
I was going to... Indulgences. I do not want to buy your indulgences.
Indulgences, there you go, thank you. What's our penance?
Well, I would say my penance is that I'm going to hide, and then you can just conveniently not find me for half an hour of our next group.
That's not penance for you.
I'll just take my cup of tea.
That's an indulgence.
I'll take my cup of tea with me. It'll be really hard. I'll find it so hard.
No, do you know what? I think we have earned penance on that one, because I think we have also had it the other way, where we have been looking for particular people and they won't respond to the comeback call, and they won't respond. And
then you're like, lost child policy. Action stations.
Action stations, go. And then they always just come out right at the start where you're like, okay, we're 9 minutes into the 10-minute policy. We're going to have to get... There you are. Okay, everybody stand down. Right. That is the perjury that we have very much been through.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
You're listening to the Forest School Podcast. Delicious waffle chat about education, nature connection, child development, community building, and lots more. Hosted by Lewis Ames and Wem Sutherland. It's been a long time since we podcasted.
It has. It's been ages, but this happens in the summer, doesn't it? It's just like, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could go on holiday. I've just been walking the coast path. You're about to go on holiday as well. But, you know, we're here now. We've got a Sunday session.
Sunday sessions. With Lewis and Wem.
Sounds like we ought to be playing love songs from the 80s.
We can do that if you want. What's it? I'll just bosh out.
Ooh. What, you're going to bosh out a love song from the 80s?
I'll just make one up. When I think about your face and your legs are on your butt hair.
Okay. Excellent. And because you love legs. We all love legs.
Excited child in our group. I'm going to check on the tadpoles. Yes, I love legs.
To see if the tadpoles have legs. Yes, I love legs.
So earnestly, I love legs. That's the shirt. Oh. Well, it's got other connotations.
I know.
Other slight connotations.
I think you'd have to have a picture of tadpoles and froglets on the T-shirt.
That would be great.
And actually, the froglet is maybe saying, yes, I love
There's one froglet. Okay, we're designing this live. There's one froglet surrounded by loads of tadpoles, and it just says, I love legs.
Yeah.
And that's the one. That is absolutely the one. Guys, you can go and get all our stickers and T-shirts and wonky phrases that have come out of the podcast. If you go on theforestschoolpodcast.com, there's a bit where you can go to our merch site, and we just put them up there, and then you can put them on whatever you want. You can put them on T-shirts, you can put them on stickers, you can put them on bags, you can put them on mugs. If you want a mug that says, I love legs, you can have a mug to tell everybody how much you love legs. And also, while you're there, will you go on your podcast thing right now? Will you just leave us a little review on whatever you're listening to? If you're listening on Apple or on Spotify or whatever it is, just because of how much you just leave us a review. And if anywhere in your review it says, I love legs, then we'll know that this is the episode that sent you there.
Yes.
That's the one.
That'd be really good. That'd be really good.
Immense. You can also find stuff that we're doing on our Facebook page, on our Instagram, and now, Wemdelin, using your full name because it's important, we've got a YouTube channel. The episodes are very slowly going up on YouTube. So if you know someone who's like, it's 2024 and I'm still meeting people that are like, so what is a podcast? Do you phone me to talking? And tell them about YouTube. Send people to YouTube. You can go and listen on YouTube. And I'm working my way through the back catalogue to put up different episodes there. But you can go and find stuff that we're doing there. And soon enough, there will be episodes on there because the end of this month, we're off to a symposium. I feel like I need to put a monocle on.
I'm so excited.
I am going to a symposium, on an academic symposium on academic ideas.
Yes, the Forest School Research Symposium, first ever thing. First of one of those at the University of Liverpool, and we're taking the pod there, listeners. So, I mean, you might already be going. You might have your ticket, and you might also be super excited about going. Or maybe you've never heard of this thing and you want to have a little look. Just Google it, Forest School Research Symposium, and I reckon there's still tickets available to go along. Amazing CPD, amazing. Like you don't have to have done any research before in your life. You might be thinking about doing Forest School research, or you might just be like, little peaky interest, or you might have noticed that there isn't any research done apparently in something that you would like to know more about in relation to Forest School. So you could come along. But if you can't come along, we are going, and we are going to be we're going to be chatting to people who are there, kind of summarising our experiences, going to some of the workshops. So it's kind of a mixture of talks and workshops about how you might engage in Forest School research, different methodologies. People are presenting research that they are thinking about doing or have done, and it's going to be absolutely kick-ass.
It's going to be
very excited. Yeah.
Very exciting. But that's not what we're talking about today, Wem. Today, you sent me an article.
I did.
Connecting teenagers, specifically teenagers, with nature.
Yeah, and this kind of like links a bit to the Miles Richardson and University of Derby nature connectedness study, which we've podded about. That was a couple of years ago now. So if you haven't heard about that, or you want to know more specifically about that study, then you can go back through our podcast episodes and find that episode. But one of the things that they found through that study, which is based in the UK, was this massive dip in nature connection beginning at the age of 10 and going slowly downwards to an all-time low of between the ages of 13 to 18, and then very gradually climbing back up, but not climbing back up to early childhood levels until the age of 30, which is pretty amazing, isn't it? It's like, your nature connection at 30 on average is going to be about the same as it was when you were 10.
And then I was reading a couple of things that say that it then plateaus. So whatever you're at around late 20s, 30s, some of the stuff I was reading was like, that's you set. It's very rare that it moves. Or rather, maybe it doesn't move universally after that. Whereas those other trends of like the dip and the rise back up through your 20s seemed to be pretty universal as far as I could see.
I'm Sarah Lawful, I'm a Forest School trainer and I'm the current chair of the FSA, and I'm really excited about the symposium. I think there's such a need for evidence-based work and gathering people who are engaging in academic research to really explore what it is about Forest School that's valuable, and explore too the prospect that we might change things, we might learn and grow and change things in the way that Forest School has grown anyway. I'm really looking forward to being there and hearing from all the clever people that have been finding out about Forest School for us.
Yeah, and global apparently, this dip in nature connection. And just I was quite interested to read just the definition of nature connectedness being how close an individual's relationship with nature is, how much they enjoy nature and its beauty, how important it is to them, whether they feel part of nature, and if they treat it with respect. So that's quite wide ranging from kind of appreciation, how much you enjoy it, how important it is to you, and whether you respect it or not, kind of being the summary of that. And I think probably we kind of feel that sort of dip in our sort of personally ourselves, kind of reflecting back to early childhood and how you feel about nature. And you can observe it with children that you're with, you know, that absolute awe and wonder that a younger child has about nature, kind of slowly ebbing away as children get older. And I think I probably wanted to do this topic because I can't remember which came first. We had an email from one of our past students, our Forest School Level 3 students, who said that they're doing Forest School. They're the Forest School leading a school now, which is great. And they are just finding that as the cohort gets older, they are, kind of less engaged in Forest School generally. They kind of have been through several activities, but are wondering what to do next. And this, you know, I thought, okay, this is interesting. And actually a lot of our work now is with younger children, isn't it? And we don't do much work with children sort of post 13 for several different reasons. But that is my background. Like, I used to teach secondary, love teenagers, love working with them, but haven't done much work with them outdoors. And so, yes, we saw this. I saw this article, and it is by. Oh, I need to name check him. Have you got his name there?
Oh, the article that you sent. I can find it. It will take me 2 seconds. I'm
going to race you. Ben Martinoga in The Guardian on the 24th of May. And I have to say, the article is quite surface, isn't it? But I used it as a sort of springboard to go off and go back and look at the Miles Richardson stuff from the University of Derby, having a look at, you found some other articles as well that were little kind of, not hacks, but little tips to encourage, you know, your teens to become nature connected or to remain.
There's a gap here. You know, we've just talked about the symposium and people finding gaps and going, there's no research here. It was very hard to research teenagers or adolescents and nature connection. There was so much to wade through that was like purely anecdotal or purely in this like what's the thing I'm trying to get to? Lots of it was written as advertising for like, in a nutshell, like, come to this group, fix your teen. Your teen could be better, and like really like bashy stuff of like, do you want a summer away? Get teenagers off screens. Here's how to do it. Yeah. But then looking at them, all of the ideas that I could see, the majority of them were like, because I think they were a lot of them trying to sell a service. They were pitched as if like, to an adult that sounds enjoyable. You know, like get your teens on nature scavenger hunts and get them like building bug hotels and stuff, where my reaction to lots of stuff is like, you haven't talked to a teenager in 20 years. This is you're selling to the adults rather than, and I think that's something that lots of teenage stuff falls into, is because you haven't quite got that autonomy fully yet. Lots of the stuff that is out there for teens to reconnect with nature is pitched at the adults that will be funding it or the adults that will be organising it. And I would be interested to see more stuff in this space around, like, you know, more autonomy in those things, or more like, you know, this is not for the adults to approve of and be like, yes, these are the youths I enjoy seeing. More like what actually, and some academic stuff, I think, in this space about like what actually worked. Not like what did the parents or the organisers or the school or whoever it is like say, yes, year 7 got a lot out of this, you know.
Yeah, I
want
know
to
what you
see
mean.
some empirical data.
Definitely. And you know, you saying about the advertising of services, and, you know, here's a website with ideas to connect your teen, and while you're at it, buy our blah 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 thing, product, buy our t-shirts, is also kind of tapping into fear, isn't it? Which a lot of advertising does do, is that that parental fear that have you noticed your teenager becoming anxious and moody and isolated and introverted and all the rest of it?
Is your teenager
they need
changing?
To go outside. Yeah, exactly. And you need to do something about it. And, and all of it's all very well to go. We have research that proves that being outside in nature increases your, boosts your dopamine, boosts all your like lovely hormones and chemicals and makes you feel good and relaxes you. And we know this, and it's great.
Yeah.
But if you are so terrified that your teenager isn't getting that because they're lying in bed on their phone, and you are so stressed that they are not going outside, that you're kind of screaming at them to go outside. And, I'm speaking as somebody whose friends and relations are going through this issue with their teenagers.
Sure.
And obviously it is a really, really worrying time to watch your child go through these changes and worrying about their mental health and worrying about their physical health and just wanting to help so badly. But this kind of fuel of, you need to get them outside and you must do this and you should be doing this and they should be doing this. If the anxiety that you're feeling as an adult about this rises to the point where you're getting into conflict with your young person about the fact that they're never going outside.
Yeah.
How, is that the best way? And I'm not parent blaming here at all. I'm standing on the brink of it myself. I'm sure I'm going to get there. But it's just this kind of, teenagers get a lot of flack. They get a lot of shoulds flipping wanged at them all the time. It's like, you should be studying harder. You should be not on your phone so much. You should be going, and it's like, you can't meet all of those expectations. It's really hard at a time when your brain is like rewiring, you know.
So that led me to a thing. So the more of these I looked at, the less I could find in many of these articles about like the effect of input. So there were lots of anecdotal stuff of like, teenagers said they enjoyed it more or blah, blah, blah. I couldn't find anything that categorically said, we were talking about that rise back up through your 20s, and I couldn't find anything categorically that said like, without active engagement, that rise doesn't happen. Or so like, I couldn't work out, and maybe I just haven't found the right article yet, but whether it's like this just naturally happens. It dips and it comes back out. And whether you look at that as like fixed mindset or growth mindset, and it struck me as being similar to, I don't know if you had, when my kids were young, were babies, we had that book, The Wonder Weeks, and it has plotted out all these like, the months, and it has little storm clouds, and it rationalizes what's going on and goes like, hey, around 4 months, your kid's going to be like learning to change sleep cycles. You may notice that they're more irritable or they need to blah, 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 blah. But it rationalizes what's going on, and you see it, I think, through the lens of like, okay, stage, this is happening. And I was wondering, looking at these articles, whether there's something you could do if you could make this really well known that like, do not worry that people are nature disconnected as between the ages of 13 and 18. We just don't even try. We just go, fuck it, not the time to do it. They're working on other stuff. And we go, right, 18 to 25 is where we're going to put loads of like programs in place and do this. And like, whether that's like a good thing because you go, strike when the iron's like ready for it, or is that bad because then you go, well, they've got 6 years to go off track and get so disconnected. And what we're doing is like stemming the flow of this regression or how do you find those things?
That's a really good point. And I think at a time when teenagers' brains are literally wired for kind of rebellion and differences to their parents, the more that we try to flog a dead horse and go outside, enjoy the tadpoles on their legs, they're going to be like, no, do one. I was interested
legs.
in exactly.
I don't like legs. Fuck you, Mum. Yes. I hate legs.
I hate legs. Don't give a shit about legs, Mum. Anyway,
in this house, young man.
In this family, we respect legs throughout our lifetimes, and there is no loss of interest in legs. I was looking at like why does this dip happen? And so we kind of talk about like teenage brains rewiring, and there's loads of books and interesting, amazing stuff about that, about like literally neural pathways just like gone, new ones, neurons just amazing, hugely important time of life and brain development. And that thing you were saying about like focusing on other stuff. So some of the stuff that I read was about like, you know, it's just really obvious. It's like at that time of life, your brain and yourself is focused on like your self-identity, your physical growth. Like that's pretty flipping phenomenal, isn't it? Just dealing with the fact that your body is changing in such a huge way, and love and relationships and like above all like group acceptance, that kind of peer bonding thing, which by the way, I haven't read this book, so and I'm not going to, so I feel like I am judging it, but I am going to judge it. That have you seen adverts for this book by Gabor Mate about like keeping your children close? And I know some people who listen to this might really respect Gabor Mate, but I'm interested to know what the book's like. But the whole premise of that book is like why times are changing and children's peers are becoming more important to them than their parents, and this is bad. And you've got to stop this and keep your kids close to you. And I'm like, okay. I kind of felt like all of the sort of research points to the fact that that is completely normal human development. And in your teenage years, that is part of growing up, is that you move away from your parents, that you're influenced by your peers, that, you know, as parents, we hope that our children connect with other human beings their age who have a positive influence on them and that make them happy and all that. But that's not guaranteed. And that is also part of life and all this stuff. And that the more we try to kind of grab onto them and make them do what we think is healthy for them, it's just not going to happen, is my instinct. Anyway, so yeah, there is an argument there for that approach, isn't there? To just to accept that your child is working on other things at that time, and pushing it down their throats all the time is not the answer, and just to bide your time and wait and give them some space. I think that is a really valid approach.
It would be interesting to see some experiments with that, you know, like some and I think you could even do it anecdotally, where you could try and find some people and go, I had no nature connection stuff set up for me between the ages of, you know, X and Y, and comparing all these people at 30 and going, well, how do you feel about it now? What is the effect of it? Are you saying about that, like, and then I wondered about, because part of this article is, there's a subtitle here of Embrace the Disorderly Wild, which was, to me, was a really promising subheading, and was like, oh, okay, so it's about, like, you know, you can't look back and idealize landscapes. People who are very nature connected, like older generations, even than you and I, had lots of freedom and lots of like free reign and autonomy in nature, and going, well, that's super, you know, if we're acknowledging that that's super high in the teenage list of needs, and this is obviously generic, right? There's loads of caveats there of like different teenagers and people are, you know, but okay, take that as a thing. And then it was, you know, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting to go, okay, that need for autonomy is super high. So how do you facilitate that? And that like need for slight like exploration and rebellion. And then the examples really just let me go, oh, it was like, why don't you do some like seed bombing or nighttime walks without a torch, and all that? Like the promise of that idea is so high in terms of like, oh shit, okay, how have you decided to do what? Oh, okay.
It's still not autonomy. That is an adult parent-led activity that you're hoping your kid will join. Yeah, that's really interesting. You're saying about like autonomy, because I was thinking about the changes in play. So I think we would say that in the groups we work with in the woods, their nature connection, as well as obviously their external influences, their families, their parents, whatever they do there, but how we kind of maybe facilitate nature connection is through our own nature connection, our own excitement about stuff that happens, and like maybe pointing things out just as a member of the group with maybe a bit more knowledge and ability to go on the internet and stuff, and through play, that they are autonomously playing in this environment and finding the affordances in nature, and therefore noticing things in nature and just being there, but they have a purpose to be there, which is intrinsically motivated. They're not there. Look, you know, we don't do a lot of whatever, scavenger hunts and that kind of thing at the moment with our groups that are well established, because they don't really need that. They are quite autonomous and they go for it. And so obviously the kind of way that children play changes as they get older, and when they get to 13, they're obviously, some children still are, especially in like mixed age groups, are still happy to engage in kind of imaginative play or kind of big group games and things like that. But it does change, and they want to spend less time in that imaginary realm. So therefore, the kind of opportunities and affordances given to them through nature and outdoor natural environments decline, because they need different things through their play. So I was just listening to you there talking about kind of autonomy and rebellion and stuff, and thinking that actually I think one of the hugest things you could do to improve nature connectedness in a way that suits adolescents would be to provide spaces for them. If their instinct is to be more socially connected, more about group acceptance, more relationships and things, they don't have very many places to meet each other and be together without judgment, without kind of being seen as a nuisance, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been trying to sort out for my local community, is like a space that's outdoors for teenagers to congregate, that maybe has a bit of shelter, but it is outdoors. It has a bit of privacy, but it's easy to get to. It's not limited by space, and there's different things you can do. You know, like that thing about teenagers engaging with playgrounds and things in a different way, like sitting on swings and just having a chat, or actually wanting to be sitting on benches, but the benches being in a particular configuration which feels very social, and that kind of overlaps with play space design for girls as well, doesn't it? And so having those spaces where teenagers aren't tutted at and they are able to be outside, and then in the same way as our younger children that we observe at Forest School becoming nature connected just through being there, just through playing and doing the thing that's intrinsically driving them, which is the imaginative role play and all that kind of stuff, and then going, oh, hey, a ladybird just landed on me because I'm outside. That kind of thing could be happening for teenagers if they were allowed to decide how they spend their own time in spaces outside without judgment, you know? And that maybe that is a huge part of it, is like just giving them the flipping outdoor space.
Yeah, I think there's an I would kind of add to that, because I think there's a level of judgment which is like moral judgment, which I think is the stereotypical scene that we might imagine of, like, there are teenagers, they are in an outdoor space, there's someone from a different generation, whatever generation that ends up being, coming along, oh, well, they're just doing this, or they've made the place look untidy, I don't like to do this, I don't like to see them do that. But there's another type of judgment there as well, which I would say peaks around teenage years, or at least it did in my experience, and it seems to be that way for young people that I know now, which is, I would say, through those years of 13 to 18 is also the peak of the social expectation on those people that what they're doing is whatever word you want to put on it, productive, valuable, improving themselves somehow, making steps towards their academic studies. If it's not that, it's working towards like a job or contributing to, like, the judgments around that level of thing, which I think Forest School can have this huge role in being like, this is a holistic, like, no curriculum involved, learner-centered space where you can just go, you know, if you want to sit and pick bits of fluff off a log, that's valuable, because we as Forest School leaders can appreciate that that is a mental health activity, that is, like, you know, that is valuable in and of itself. Whereas I think there's lots of the judgment around teenagers in outdoor spaces from the outside potentially comes with, like, well, what are you even doing? Why aren't you pushing this thing forward? But then definitely. Also there's a judgment potentially that's been internalized, if you're in that system all the time, that any outdoor experiences will be, oh, I'm going to be tested on what the bugs were, or I'm going to have to fill out a sheet when we get back, or I'm going to have to justify, you know, the teenagers in the situation are potentially feeling like all those activities have to be justified. Well, what did you do? What were you out with your mates doing? What was going on? Or, you know, you go to a more structured thing and it's like, you're not getting nature connected, therefore you're not doing it right. You're not, you know.
Or, as you say, it's internalized and there is a sense of pressure within. I definitely felt this in terms of I should be doing something improving. I should be doing something that like looks good on my CV for university applications. I don't want to be wasting my time, you know. So I was thinking about my own teenage years and thinking about my own nature connection then, and actually mine was really strong, but only because I got involved in scouting. And the only reason I got involved in scouting was because I wanted to do Duke of Edinburgh. And part of me wanted to do Duke of Edinburgh because I enjoyed it, and I hadn't really had that experience as a younger child. My family didn't really do kind of hiking and camping and stuff, but I personally enjoyed it and wanted a way to do that. And definitely partly because I was told in school assemblies and all these kind of things and visiting speakers that it's, you know, doing Duke of Edinburgh is absolutely amazing. It looks great on your CV. You want to be a well-rounded individual. It's going to help you get into uni. It's going to help you get jobs, la, la, la. So those two things met for me, which prompted me to seek out, it was Venture Scouts at the time. But then once I joined, I enjoyed it so much that actually the Duke of Edinburgh stuff went out the window, and I didn't actually do it because it was just coincidentally really lovely group of people. The leaders allowed us to be really autonomous to the point, well, say allowed, they were a bit scared by the fact that we kind of went, okay, smell you later, you've introduced us to each other now, and now we're going off and doing our own thing without you. And they were a bit like, does that mean that you're kind of covered by insurance or not, or are we negligent? So they were kind of freaking out, poor people. But once I met, it was about that peer acceptance, that kind of group cohesion. It's like, oh, we all enjoy doing these things and we all make each other laugh. So my nature connection is driven by that, you know, that I'm enjoying hanging out for a weekend with these people in this remote location where nobody's watching us. And of course, then I'm on Dartmoor and I'm enjoying that and I'm absorbing all that goodness from being outside. But I don't think I would have done that just by somebody going, oh, do you want to join this like cool group? I probably would have been like, looks a bit weird and geeky. Who are they anyway? They're wearing waterproofs. Not sure. So it was that impetus to like self-improvement, D&V, that drove me there in the first place, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? Like, if you go back to the paths to nature connectedness that came out of that Uni of Derby study, you know, there's like meaning, isn't there? So there's like contact, emotion, beauty, meaning, compassion. And so maybe that meaning path is actually useful sometimes for some people. It's like, well, you know, I'm doing it because I want to get Duke of Edinburgh on my CV, or I'm doing it because I want to like campaign and be an activist like that. I read some stuff like that and I thought that was really interesting, because that's kind of to do with group identity as well, isn't it? If you're kind of joining the climate strikes and you're protesting, gives you like a huge sense of meaning. But some of the stuff I was reading about that said, so it was a Miles Richardson blog, and it said really interestingly that when he had a look at the kind of Greta Thunberg speeches and that kind of Fridays for Futures, school strikes, climate marches, that kind of thing, that the word nature and wildlife and biodiversity don't appear in Greta Thunberg's speeches. Things like climate change and destruction and extinction and all those things do come up, but actually it's not necessarily, that movement maybe doesn't focus that much on nature connection. It's about the climate crisis, and obviously those things are linked, but those young people who are taking action politically perhaps aren't actually spending time in nature. We don't know that. You know, it's just that they really care. They obviously really care about it, and they've kind of met that criteria about like it being important to them, and they respect it and stuff. But I was also thinking about that because the article was saying it's quite surprising that we might notice this like dip in nature connection when actually some of the most active campaigners against the climate crisis are young people in that age bracket. But it could be that those are those people who don't lose their nature connection. Some people obviously keep it through those years. But I was thinking that also it is very political, isn't it? And associated with a sense of urgency and anxiety and worry and fight, which is very different to the nature connection you might notice at a forest school with a younger person, where it's all in wonder. enjoyment, it's noticing details. That's a very different emotion and a very different motivating factor, isn't it? And that if all that's advertised to young people in regards to nature is like doom, gloom, therefore take action, get angry, if some people are like that, and then credit to them, that it's like they do amazing work. But if you're not that way inclined, or your brain is just so full that you're like, flipping hell, I've got no strength at the moment to feel that, then there's not very much else advertised as a way to give a shit about nature. Do you know what I mean? There's like retired people restoring like National Trust pieces of land, or there's, what else? Or there's scouting, I guess.
My name is Sarah Knight, and I have been working with Forest School for over 25 years. I am level 3 trained and have been researching and writing extensively about Forest School for a fair proportion of this time, trying to get recognition of the importance and how it can transform participants of all ages and all kinds. And I find the idea of the symposium incredibly exciting as a step forward towards getting recognition, wider recognition, deeper recognition, official recognition of Forest School and its value for all people participating in it. Thank you.
Today's episode of the Forest School podcast is brought to you by us, Children of the Forest. Me and Wen wanted to let you know about our Level 3 Forest School Leader training course. We are down in Devon. Well, we're on the Devon-Somerset border. We're right off the M5. So anybody that's travelling up and down that motorway, we are super easy to get to. Our training is 10 days, not 5, like some people do. 10 immersive days in our woods, surrounded by all our like amazing play structures and resources. And we deep dive over those 10 days into not just what's covered in the course, but also we do things like play theory, neurodiversity, holistic human needs to make sure that you're equipped to facilitate the best possible Forest School experiences. We keep you on track with monthly online meetings, email support. We have a Discord server for all our students, helping you to navigate the coursework, and we provide regular feedback. It's not one of those like you've done it and now you're out on your own. You have to rely on Facebook groups or people who've done the course before. We meet you all the way through the course, and our flexible submission options mean we can work around your learning style, including submitting some of your coursework as video discussions or as different things. We've had people submit watercolor paintings as part of their coursework, and that's absolutely fine. All counts. So whenever possible, we also visit your site and come and observe your sessions, not in an assessment kind of way, but in a like free consultancy that's built into the course. We come and look and like, hey, I wonder if you could design this thing over here, or maybe your staff look like they could do with some training in X, Y, Z. We're there to kind of give you that extra bump up. So don't miss this opportunity to transform your career and make a lasting impact in children's lives. You can visit childrenoftheforest.com, and there's hyphens in between all those words, or you can email us at childrenoftheforest@outlook.com to learn more about our Forest School Leader training course. Please don't wait around on this one, guys. We only do one course a year, and we only have about 15 spaces so that we can give the right amount of attention to people. And next one starts in autumn of this year. So again, head to childrenoftheforest.com and get yourself or somebody else that you know booked on to that course today. I did see a group that I if anyone listening is connected with this group, I would absolutely love to chat to them. I came across a group recently called Young Wilders, right? Who are all the work is exclusively done by teenagers, and I really love this idea. They are going across the UK and attempting to connect. Sorry, this is a tangent. It's not necessarily to do with the eco-anxiety stuff.
That's what we're about. Tangents.
So they're going around and saying about these pockets of woodland, and basically where you go, oh, there's a bit, 5 acres of woodland here, then there's a bunch of fields, and then there's another 6 or 7 acres of woodland over here, and going, what we're going to do is take the hedgerow that connects them, you know,
Yep.
it goes forwards and then left and then forwards and then left and whatever, and we're going to put another one parallel about 6 or 12 foot apart and create this like nature road so
Yep.
that there is a
Corridor.
corridor that's fully protected by hedges on both sides for wildlife to move between that bit of woodland there and that bit of woodland there, and their hope is to try and connect all these pockets of woodland
Amazing.
in the UK, which is like an amazing thing. And that is very like, and that's all done, as far as I can see, by teenagers and young people. So I think there is a mix there, isn't there? I also think there's something about potentially as you and maybe this is true, maybe this is just my own musing, but as you become a teenager, you start to, like we were saying about exploring and looking out, and you start to potentially consider that you won't always be in your local area. So the stuff that is very impactful for very young children about, we've put this in at the park, or the school field now has a bug hotel.
Yeah.
For children maybe 10 and under, that is the world. That is the world is my house, the parks that I go to, and the school field for a lot of children. Yep. And then as you move into that teenage space, you start to, you know, look out and go, okay, well, I might go live in a city, and people start to talk to you about where you're going to go to university or where you're going to live, and you might move. And so that opening out of, maybe it's less to do with like a dip in nature connection, but a widening and a broadening in terms of what does that term nature mean. When you're small, nature means the bugs and animals that I can literally pick up and hold, the trees that I can touch. And then as you move into that teenage stage, you become acutely aware of like, oh my God, this thing's massive and I'm about to go into this world. And so nature means the planet and the ecosystem and and because you're at a period of your life which involves movement and travel and growth and exploration and all those things. And then maybe I've drawn a link here that is like, what's the word? Correlated but not causated. But in your 20s and 30s could be when a lot of people start to shrink back down and go, I've potentially found a place to live, and I'm starting to put roots in a place, and I've got this network, this support network here, and so actually the local park becomes important to me again. And your nature, your definition of nature shrinks back down to, well, the cricket pitch could do with some stuff on the edge, couldn't it? And those oak trees that are in the village grid, you know, I'm just wondering whether that's rather than seeing it as a dip, because that's even just seeing it as a dip, that's a lens that is putting moral or judgments on it. But whether
it's a deficit model,
but whether you could look at it and go, they're small, the nature means small, then nature means big, and then nature comes back and means small. And we need all of these people in the mix, because just like any organization, you need people that can look big picture, you need people that can look minutiae, and how that would change our views of, you know, is there a nature deficit, or is the definition changed for a couple of decades? What do you reckon? You know,
I think that's a really good point, and I definitely kind of identify with that from my own teenage years, in terms of that being a time when I was really daydreaming all the time about leaving my hometown and hopefully my home country, just going, oh my God, I saw a program where somebody went to Africa or India or Canada or whatever, and just go, oh my God, I want to do that so badly. You're absolutely right. Like, the human brain kind of, you know, that's all about play schemas as well, isn't it? It's like approaching, you can't possibly begin to comprehend the size of the world, so you start small. You start with, what happens when I throw shit? What happens if I throw shit in this other place? That thing's falling in kind of a way that I throw shit, and then it broadens out from there. And that, with that broadening of horizons for teenagers, I can totally see how that could be a thing, that you're actually more aware of the wider world as opposed to your stomping ground. Makes complete sense.
It's and I think that's where I would use that to kind of link to the number one point in this article, this Guardian article that you sent, was using technology to forge new connections with nature, which is, I would say, it's become less of a hot topic. I feel like maybe it's just the people and the echo chambers that I'm in. I feel like 5 years ago, it was very hot in terms of like, no technology outside. Oh my God, nature and technology are mortal enemies. And if you like one, then you must want to piss in the face of the other. And like that kind of real dichotomy instead of duality kind of mindset. And so this article was making the point of like, you know, you can use things like Merlin to encourage, you know, interest in birdsong and taking pictures of things and digital art. That I know as a teenager, I was super interested in like digital art. And again, it's like, what are the priorities for this group? Digital engagement, great. Let's use digital engagement in the space that we're in, which is a natural space, which is out in the woods. And then, so I'm all for that. I really think that there is a space where, in a potentially, that would be one thing where if I was looking at like, what advice was I give for people? I would go, there's something where you can hold a low technology space for people before their teenage years, and that has benefits. And personally, I would say not no technology, low technology spaces, more engagement with the physical world, possibly because of that thing we've just been talking about. I love it, like physical engagement with the world is the way in. And then I think if you had teenagers using technology, which is what I think they should be using, but if they were using that in the same space as young people trying to do like primary age children doing then, I think that's where there would be some confusion, some mixing of spaces and whatever else. But if you had a exclusively teenage space, and there was an expectation of like, yep, the expectation here is that you engage using your phones. The expectation here is that, you know, they will be out and we're doing different things. And if you want to record TikTok videos in nature, do it. If you want to record, you know, make silly memes about, you know, stuff that's going on and you're like, that's absolutely acceptable. That's what we're doing in this space. Because I think there is also something there, like we were just discussing that thing of the idea of nature broadening and it being like, you know, I was watching something the other day that was saying that people who are in their, so it was like late teens and early 20s now, are the most globally connected generation in terms of they have seen shit happen on their phones, they have seen global news, but firsthand they have been able to access accounts of people on the ground in Central Africa when there's been droughts, or they've been able to access firsthand accounts of, you know, and there are all these like pitfalls and things we need to navigate and safeguarding and all this stuff, obviously, right? I'm not suggesting that we discount all of those things. However, there is something about, if you accept that that is a way to nature connection, is understanding global patterns and impacts in the world and climate change, and you know, in some ways you can see that as what's the word, like ethnobotany. It's not ethnobotany, but it's like how humans interact with the world. You know, you see that as a primary school age child with like how a nature connected adult engages with the bug hotel. As you become a teenager, you start to see it as like, okay, these people live in this kind of environment and they're doing this stuff, and these people live over there, and like that requires technology to do, you know, that. So going, yeah, that's a form of technology facilitating global nature connection, global human to environment nature connection.
Yeah, and also local nature connection. I mean, there's that judgment, isn't it, that I use my phone in nature all the blinking time. I'm always looking stuff up. I'm using Merlin. I'm using the Apple ID thing where you just literally take a photo on your iPhone and then you swipe up and it flipping identifies any bug, plant, whatever. I'm photographing it and videoing it like all the time. If I'm out for a walk without my phone, I feel weird because I can't get that type of nature connection, and I really miss it. And so, again, if we see a teenager on their phone outdoors, then we're quite likely to be like, oh God, they're just like, what's the point of them even being outside? They should have left the phone at home. But they are becoming adults. And so we don't look at adults using their phones in that way, in such a judgmental way. When we do our level 3 courses, we, people have their phones out often to record things, to make notes about things, to photograph things. And we do a session on Nature ID using phones and apps and whatnot. And yeah, that comes without any judgment. And I think that can absolutely be a way into nature connection for young people. My son was, we were on the Coast Path this weekend, and he did ask, he didn't take his phone. He's not really that into it, but he asked me for my phone so that he could take photos of particular things and views and stuff. I thought that was quite interesting that he, saw me doing it, but wanted to do it himself. Mm-hmm. And that's a way to kind of record your awe and wonder, isn't it? In the same way as young people, small people will be, come on, look at this amazing slug. Taking a photo of it and potentially posting it on social media or showing it to your mates is the same. It's the same awe and wonder.
Or even like, if you disassociate it even further and you go, being on your phone, who was the book we read? And they were really judgmental about people on their phones, being like, they don't even know the nature around them.
That was how to be... No, wasn't that how to be a bad bird watcher?
I think so.
Simon Thingy.
So, yeah. Anyway, so that judgmental thing of like using your phone, right? I think you would expect that judgment of seeing a person walking around on their phone, walking through woods. You might even have the thought of like, that's a bit annoying that I had to hear part of their phone call, doing whatever else. I know of I think there are 4 different walking groups in my village with the express purpose of people broadly 50 and over who want to go for a walk and simultaneously talk with their peers. Right? That's what they're doing. I think, and a lot of people I know that in that age group, if you said, would you like to go for a walk completely on your own? Oh no, I don't want to do that. Would you like to go for a walk? Yeah, I want to go for a walk and talk to my friends and we have a chat along the way and we do all this. That's what they're fucking doing while they're on the phone.
Yeah.
It's just a like framing issue that I think lots of this like people can, I think broad strokes here, right? I think you could argue that a lot of the perceived dip in nature connection is actually a dip in social acceptance for the means of nature connection.
Yeah.
I think I could really, not necessarily saying that I would die on that hill, but I think I could make a good case that nature connection just changes for a bit. And it doesn't, that would be my...
Maybe you need to change the measures, the recording methodology for that age group or something. Yeah. But that's a good point you make about being on the phone, and that's another thing that I definitely do all the time is like phone my close friends and family when I'm on a walk outside. And so they'll be chatting to me interspersed with, oh my God, hang on, sorry, wait. Oh no, it's just a thrush. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I've just found a poop.
Listeners to this podcast, long-term listeners to the podcast will be well aware of this experience. Us just being distracted by squirrels and different things.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is the thing. And so I think I think I would want to finish this by saying, like, I'd be interested to see some stuff that demoralizes. That wasn't the word I want. Removes those moral judgments from how we assess nature connection, and then show me some data. If you're listening to this and you're like, I work with teenagers, do it, please. I want to see it, because I think that would also be a real boon to, because also the more research we can do into stuff like this, the better we can provide facilities and sessions and opportunities for those things. At the moment, you could, it's a bit like going, well, people aren't interested in it, so change the offer then. But we need to know what we're changing the offer to. Yeah,
I'd be really interested. I mean, separate, not just nature connectedness, but sort of engagement with Forest School. I'd love to see some research into practice that started with a group when they were primary school age, kept the same group. I mean, that might be us.
Yeah.
Kept the same group. And what does it look like? And how what's changed, what hasn't changed in terms of the structure of a session, the offers from the facilitators, the interests of the group, or do they naturally leave? What's
loads of stuff.
Oh my God.
Oh, mate, there's as always opened more doors than we have answered. Guys, please, again, if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, that has opened my mind, so many questions, drop us a review, drop us an email. If you head to theforestschoolpodcast.com, you can sign up to our Patreon from there, you can send us some messages. Dropped into this one, we will have had another Forest School, Forgive Me Forest School section, where we forgave another person's sin. So if you've got a sin to confess, you can let us know at forestschoolpodcast.com. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast was made possible thanks to the incredible people that are supporting us on patreon.com/The Forest School Podcast. So a massive thank you to Rachel, Karen, Matthew, Catherine, Gareth, Rosie, Julie, Rachel, Candice, Claire, Heidi, Louise, Michael and Anna. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for making this episode possible. And if you want to help support future episodes, you can go to patreon.com/The Forest School Podcast and sign up to support us there. Thank you so, so much.